Just to be clear, there are going to be absolutely no spoilers in this video. None. Zero. I will not be discussing anything that was leaked in terms of what was in that leak, the substance of that leak, so you do not have to worry about hearing anything if you've been trying to avoid it. No spoilers here. Even the gameplay that's going to be playing, that's all previously revealed, previously and publicly shown gameplay for the game. So I'm just gonna let that play and kind of have a discussion, because I do think that there's this narrative going around that The Last of Us 2 is in this very dire strait. It's got this massive issue and that Sony is in trouble. I'm even seeing the narrative in some places that Sony should just drop the game digitally if it's done, or if it's close to done. Just get the game out and let people have it, because they're going to lose money if they don't. And I think the narrative I'm seeing the most is that Naughty Dog has lost it. This game is in bad straits. It's out of control. What's going on over there? This game is not going to sell super well. It's got a bad release day right before the launch of the new systems. They should either push it onto the new systems or just release it now and call it a day. It's the only way they'll make money. And in my opinion, every single one of those narratives kind of misses the point of, I think, what Naughty Dog and Sony were trying to do in the first place, and how important or how bad something like what's happened here really is, or in this case, isn't. Look, I was the first person to get started that was a little bit confused by the indefinite delay of Last of Us. At first, I thought it was, well, with everything going on around the world, everything happening, an assumption that people weren't spending as much money. We've seen marketing teams, we've seen companies slow down their spending dramatically. It's why you may have noticed a shift in the type of ads you see before videos or after videos. There is this belief amongst a lot of companies that their products or their items are luxury purchases or recreational purchases that people just aren't spending money on right now, because a lot of people unfortunately are in a position where spending money, discretionary spending, isn't possible or irresponsible. But then I look at charts that show that gaming spending has ticked up by almost 300% since all this started. People are spending more time doing these things because obviously they're at home. And my thought is, well, I guess that can't be it. Then my other thought was, they're not being honest. The game isn't nearly as finished as they're saying it is. The game isn't ready and they need to push it further. That doesn't seem to be it either. And then the third thought is, well, maybe they just want to get this thing out on the PS5. Add another launch title. Maybe that lineup is a little bit more barren than people think it is, and they need to bolster it somehow, maybe being the reason that they've waited so long to actually tell us about the games. And that's the only one that makes a bit of sense, but that's not what's happening either. See, we just got the word yesterday that the game will launch in June, making that indefinite delay a delay of a month. Now, this is not a dramatic amount of time. This is a relatively small delay, especially because when they announced the last one, again, it was indefinite, which is not the best word you want to hear about something you're excited about. But on that very same day, we get that announcement, which I think was a little bit of a response to that one. I honestly don't know which came first, chicken or the egg situation. But at the same time, we get this massive, and I do mean massive, story leak. If you're excited about The Last of Us at all, I implore you, do not look for it. Mute The Last of Us on Twitter and social media and avoid everything, because it appears to be legitimate, especially because anywhere they can, Sony, Naughty Dog are muting replies to these things, muting the actual leaks. And normally when you see something that's been leaked and isn't true, companies don't tend to try to cover it up. They are covering this up, and based on what I'm reading about it, it does appear to be legitimate. Does it make me personally less excited for the game? No, but it could make you. Maybe you're seeing something you don't want to see. Maybe you're seeing a story that you're not as interested in as you thought you'd be. But there's quite a bit there. Now, it is worth pointing out that just because they are muting things doesn't mean that this is a legitimate leak, that everything here is true. While it does imply legitimacy, it doesn't guarantee it. Everything in this leak could be totally wrong. This could be a total bait and switch. None of it at all could be true. But the rumor is that a disgruntled employee leaked all of this, or former employee, due to a pay dispute. And this is where we're going to get into the meat of what I really want to talk about today and why we're doing this very informal discussion style. Earlier this year, we got the Schreier report that The Last of Us and Naughty Dog were in a bit of a bind with how employees are being treated, how they felt they were being treated, and what it took to get a game of The Last of Us 2's magnitude made. There was a huge piece about the dangers of crunch, what's going on at Naughty Dog, the bad situation between employees and employer, and what many viewed as mistreatment of Naughty Dog's employees, as unnecessary, overbearing, or irresponsible crunch, a culture of crunch, as it's been called. And now we get reports, just a couple of months later, that there are people who are upset enough about the way they were treated at Naughty Dog to literally, potentially leak almost all of the game's most important story bits, including but not limited to the ending. However, I do want to say really quickly, as a little bit of a footnote in this conversation, I have seen, weirdly enough, 2 different leaks. One has the whole ending, which I think is the one that people are saying is coming from the employee, and one does not have the ending. I don't know if that's because they were chopped up and spread apart. I don't really know, which again lends to the credence of the theory that this could all be illegitimate and none of this could be true. Either way, I wouldn't dive into either of those 2 spoiler threads that keep going around. But regardless, this situation, should it be legitimate? Should it be what actually happened? A disgruntled ex-employee over a pay dispute leaks Last of Us 2's story, narrative, plot points, and ending. That is a pretty obvious indictment of Naughty Dog's working culture, a substantiation of what we saw in the Schreier report, validation of the people that spoke up. Now, I started this video by telling you that I don't think things are as bad as people say they are. And here's where I split the road a bit. I don't mean the crunch culture at Naughty Dog. I'm about to get to what I mean, but I want to clarify, I don't mean that. That appears to be just as bad as Schreier reported it being. Crunch culture in general is just as bad as Schreier continues to report it being. The underpayment, the overworking, the subordinate employer hierarchy that it shoves down everybody's throat. And if this is real, if this guy really did and was upset enough to do something like this over a pay dispute, it's worth wondering just how bad things really are at Naughty Dog. There's nothing redeeming about that situation. What is, in my mind, not as bad as everybody thinks it is the game itself. And I'm not going to sit here and attest to its quality. Obviously, no one has played it. No one's really even seen all that much of it. But what I want to say, and what I think is kind of driving the narrative, is that the idea that what's going on surrounding this game, the indefinite delay, the movement back 1 month, the leaks, all of that, the Schreier report, the narrative is that this is indicative of what the quality of Last of Us 2 is going to be, and Naughty Dog is overrated, and they're starting to collapse, and this was unsustainable. I don't really believe any of that is going to end up being true. I find it hard to believe that The Last of Us 2 is going to be anything less than, at the very least, of great quality. I mean, if everything going on, the Schreier report, the leaking, all that is true, there's clearly been an immense and immeasurable amount of work that's gone into this game. And more importantly, there are still extremely talented people working on this project. The people who are sacrificing all of this stuff to get this made are still amazing, incredible talents. It's what's made Naughty Dog so special. People think it's the crunch or this and that. No, it is talent. It is people that are the best at what they do. They have clearly taken their time with The Last of Us, not enough time to avoid crunch, but we can get into that in a different video, but enough time to make something they believe in. Just looking at this from a business perspective, most of the stuff that I believe people are using against The Last of Us, creating these narratives, are things that you see in business a lot that don't necessarily equate to the quality of the product. I firmly believe that the delay, the future delay again, the indefinite delay, had nothing at all to do with the quality of Last of Us 2 or how finished it was. I genuinely believe that. I personally believe, and I can't verify this obviously, that it was delayed at one point with the idea of pushing it to the PS5's launch window, but I also can't verify that there's even a PS5 version ready of the game. Maybe they did that. Maybe they thought they'd have one ready, and that's what wasn't ready, and that led to the more immediate release. They didn't have a PS5 version they believed they could get out of the launch window, and thus, boom, drop it now. It's worth pointing out that The Last of Us, the original game, launched around the same time before the PS4 launched. Right before that system released, The Last of Us came out, and then The Last of Us Remastered hit the console months later. Same situation is here. It's not like Sony and Naughty Dog have not done this before. The Last of Us was the swan song of the PS3. I can't imagine they don't currently view The Last of Us Part 2 as the PS4's swan song. I think that this leak also has nothing to do with the quality of the game. I think it has nothing to do with the final product of the game at all. And as far as we know, even if there's veracity to this report, we don't know if things have been changed since then. It's unlikely, let's be honest, but we can't be sure. We can't verify any of this until the game is out. Now, I want to be abundantly clear, that is not in defense of Sony's practices or Naughty Dog's practices that has led to something like this happening, should it be legitimate. It's just to say that I don't think it speaks directly to the game itself in terms of its release quality. I think that in some ways there's some overreaction going on to the things that are coming out. Spoilers are obviously awful. Avoid those at all costs. And if you're somebody that cares at all about people's actual enjoyment of this medium, please don't be the guy spreading and reposting the spoilers in places where people don't expect them so that they get caught up in reading one. That's obviously not a cool thing to do. I just think we don't have enough information about the actual game to try to correlate anything that's gone on thus far with the final product itself. It's worth pointing out that from what almost everybody understands, this culture of crunch is exactly what created Uncharted 4, which ended up being great. And the original Last of Us, and sure, there seems to be some reports that it's gotten worse over time, but in terms of the product, in terms of the final product, it's more of a wait and see thing. There's not much correlation here that we can actually definitively prove. But now I want to know what you guys think. What do you think of this leak? Have you seen it? Please, please, please do not post it down below. Are you still interested in the game? Do you think all of this equates to a lesser product? Are you worried at all about The Last of Us Part 2? Do you still think it's going to be great? Let me know the answers to any of those questions down in the comments below. Let's have a real conversation. As always, if you enjoyed this video, press the like button. If you haven't yet done so, press subscribe and a little bell on the subscribe button. Notification bell will make sure you don't miss anything, so press subscribe and that. Now, really quickly, today's video is sponsored by Raycon. Raycon earbuds start at about half the price of other premium wireless earbuds on the market. They sound, at least to my ears, about as good as anything else I've used. In fact, my pair sounds just as good as my AirPods do, and they actually fit a bit more comfortably. And because of that, they really are multi-purpose earbuds because of the way they fit. They're great for working from home, working out, listening to music, podcasts, whatever you're doing. They're great everyday earbuds. Their everyday E25 earbuds are their best model. You can get 6 hours on one charge, seamless Bluetooth pairing, a bit more bass, and a nice design. If you click the link in the description below, you can get 15% off your Raycon order. That's buyraycon.com/cleanprints. Mine are here, they're amazing. I've actually been using them more than my AirPods recently. Follow that link down below for that 15% off. It helps me out a ton, and also it'll get you some really good, really affordable earbuds. And on your screen right now are 2 of the more recent Clean Prints videos. You can click on either of those. Stay right here on this channel, and until next time, guys, I'm out.